Hey, we're back with the Off Campus podcast, and today we're going to be talking about Trump's recent meeting with the Israeli Prime Minister and the whole Israel-Palestine conflict.
So I took notes while I was watching the press conference, and I'm going to run through everything pretty quickly. I've got it rather well summarized. We're going to talk about it, and then the Israel-Palestine thing as a whole. So to summarize everything, Trump's opening, he criticized the Iran deal, talked about the renewed sanctions, the security assistance to Israel as at an all-time high. He did say we should cherish the value of all human life. He stressed all and actually looked at Netanyahu when he said it, so who knows if that means something. He said he dislikes the UN event that went against Israel. We need to work towards peace agreement, but it's the parties themselves who must negotiate. And he says compromises must be made, and looked right at Netanyahu and said, "You know that, right?" Netanyahu's opening, he praised the Israeli-U.S. alliance and wants to make upgrades in every field. He strongly agrees that Israel should be treated fairly and not boycotted. Their biggest threat's radical Islamic terrorism, and they're happy to work with the U.S. Now, the first question said was in regards to Michael Flynn. They basically said, how does Russia's actions impact their plans on the Iran deal that they've both criticized, and are they on the same page with settlements? Trump said Michael Flynn was unfairly judged by the fake media, and the leaks are criminal actions, illegal, bad, believe me, sad. As for settlements, this actually took me by surprise. He just kind of looks right at him and says, hey, can we hold back on the settlements, so that we can make a deal? Then Netanyahu said something which I wasn't able to make out. Trump kind of laughed and said, it doesn't sound too optimistic. Next question, they said, are you ready to give up the notion of a two-state solution and be willing to hear different ideas from the Prime Minister about annexation of the West Bank, and will you move the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem? Trump kind of didn't really say anything. He just said, I'm happy with the one that they're both happy with. Yeah, genius. I don't know why we never thought of this before. And as for moving the embassy, Trump said he would love to see it happen and is looking at it very strongly. Netanyahu said he wants to focus on substance, not labels. He says there are two critical things for peace. Palestinians must recognize the Jewish state and stop calling for its destruction, and Israel must retain the overriding security control of the area west of the Jordan River, or else they'll just get another radical Islamic state which explodes the peace. And he goes on to try to justify that it's their homeland because, the Chinese are from China, the Japanese are from Japan, the Jews are from Judea, and he blames the Palestinians for hating them and therefore not allowing the peace. Let's see, next question. Both sides will have to make compromises and a halt on settlements. More specific, both sides will have to make compromises, and they asked about the halt on settlements. What are some more specific compromises? And to Netanyahu, what expectations do you have about the new administration's plans to combat the Iran deal and Iran's nuclear program? Trump said Israel should show flexibility, and Palestinians have to get rid of the hate that they're teaching in schools and acknowledge Israel's right to exist. Netanyahu wants to prevent Iran from getting nukes, and they're both greatly committed to do it. Trump has an effort to point out violations made by Iran, impose sanctions on Iran, Hezbollah, and he welcomes these things and says they're long overdue. The final question said there's been a sharp rise in anti-Semitic incidents across the U.S. What do you say to those who believe and feel that your administration is playing with xenophobic and racist tendencies? And Netanyahu, do you agree to what Trump just said to the claims that they should hold off on settlements? Trump actually kind of just bragged about his electoral votes for a little bit, but then he went on to say they want to promote peace, reduce crime in the country, and stop long simmering racism in the nation. Then he says he won because the nation is very divided, and we're going to see a lot of love. Tremendous. Netanyahu says the settlements aren't the core of the conflict. They're just an aspect of it. And they're going to speak about it so they can reach an understanding. And he says, again, unless those two prerequisites are met, the whole endeavor is pretty much hopeless. Okay, so what do you two think about that?
So the one state is just Israel.
Basically, yeah.
Yeah. So this is pretty different from what Obama thought.
Yeah. Yeah. Michael?
I think it's good that Trump's at least trying to stand up to Netanyahu a bit. Like, I think he's putting a bit more pressure on him than Obama did.
Yeah.
Which is interesting.
Yeah, he's being...
Because I would have thought it would be the other way around, just judging by, like, whenever Trump got into office. And I know he appointed David Friedman as his ambassador to Israel. He was obviously strongly in favor of the one-state solution and wanted to expand settlements, actually.
Mm-hmm.
So I just find that interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, I think... Yeah, Trump and Netanyahu actually said they've known each other for forever. So, yeah, I think Trump is using their relationship and, charisma to kind of get a more reasonable stance, such as halting the settlements and having compromise. So it's definitely better than what I thought was going to happen, where Trump would just say, screw the Palestinians, Israel gets the whole deal. So I'm definitely more optimistic than I was, but we're going to have to see what happens.
Yeah.
Yeah. As for some of the things...
Personally...
Sorry, go ahead.
I personally am pretty pro-Israel, so I'm definitely happy that Trump is more on the side with Israel. I mean, he's not giving in to all of the demands that they want, but I think he's more pro-Israel, which is, I support that.
Yeah.
He's against Hamas.
Yeah, that's definitely good. When it comes to Israel, I'm all for an Israeli homeland and defending Israel, but I do feel like they've definitely overstepped their boundaries as far as territorial expansion and settlements. And, for sure. What Netanyahu said about treating Israel fairly and not doing the boycotts, the UN resolution halting the settlements was not at all unfair. And the boycotts, he actually talked about boycotting other nations who voted against them. And the final thing he said, the settlements aren't the key thing. I really don't believe that. I mean, if someone were invading your territory and building homes and saying this is ours now, I think that'd be the main issue. Okay, so yeah, we pretty quickly covered that. Still hearing echo, but let's move on to the Israeli-Palestinian thing as a whole. What do you two think?
Well, I already said I'm pretty pro-Israel, but I think the settlements are overstepping as well.
Mm-hmm.
And there's a lot of them.
Yeah. Michael?
I would say I'm in favor of a two-state solution. Like, I support having an Israeli government and nation and everything. But I also think the Palestinians should be given sovereignty.
I'm definitely in favor of a two-state solution too. And I would be very, very frank with Israel. I would say you were deliberately taking Palestinian land. Like if you look at the border set by the 1947 partition plan, it's pretty much split 50-50. Now all Palestine has left is the Gaza Strip and the West Bank. So it's complete, reversal from what it once was. So I would say, Israel, if you completely stop right now we're not going to do anything. But if you take another mile of land, we're gonna, we're gonna cut funding. We're gonna have to roll back on military aid, and if things get really bad, maybe just go to the UN and say we'd like to redraw the borders to halt this rogue state. I mean, it doesn't matter if you're our ally. If you're acting like a rogue state, you need to be stopped. People who say that America and Israel are supposed to be friends, friends don't let friends be rogue states. So I would be obviously very polite but very frank with Israel about this.
Okay, I guess for me, what I have understood is that the Palestinian government right now is very unstable because there's like two competing groups, and the old government is pretty much about to be thrown out and replaced by Hamas, which is like a terrorist group, which is, it just seems like the Israeli government is in a more stable place, even if they maybe run a little corrupt, but at least it's not about to be taken over by a terrorist group.
Yeah. I mean, in regards to that, I definitely agree Israel's government's more stable, but I think part of it can be attributed to Israel's settlements and encroachment on their territory, because a lot of the reason that there's terrorist activity there is that Palestine has no real formal military to fight back against Israel. So a lot of people are probably thinking they're like vigilantes to stop a foreign invader. Like you can't encroach on someone's territory and then not expect retaliation.
Yeah. But it's a blurry line to whose territory is what. It goes back like lots of centuries and all religious conflict.
Christopher Hitchens, when asked about this whole thing, said, two-state solution, peace in the region. Israel can't get it, Palestine can't get it, United States can't get it, UN can't get it. Why can't they get it? Because the parties of God have a veto.
So it's just like it's partly because they both have like super important religious sites in like the city of Jerusalem.
Yeah, Jerusalem, the Mecca, all that. Yeah.
So what do you think about moving the embassy to Jerusalem?
Considering Jerusalem, I believe, is in the West Bank or close to it, I definitely think it would be kind of a sign by the U.S. that we're supporting encroachment on Palestinian territory.
Yeah.
I don't know if it would directly send that message. I don't know, but I think it's important to have connections in that area.
It is, but again, the Palestinians know U.S. and Israel are buddy-buddy, and we're the power behind Israel. So if we encroached on them directly with our embassy, I do think it would send that message.
So those were our thoughts on the whole Israel-Palestine situation, and it's a very complex issue. We obviously didn't cover every single thing having to do with it, but we've tried our best.
Yeah, we can't have a 30-minute video, so. Yep. Thank you guys for watching, and we'll see you next week.